Category 5 Hurricane Melissa shattering records as it batters the country of Jamaica. Where the storm is going from here in today's video. Welcome in, folks, and hopefully we're having it all right. It is now Tuesday, October 28th, and unfortunately, Melissa has really hit the worst case scenario, as this is one of the strongest storms in recorded history for the Atlantic making landfall. The storm having 185 mile an hour sustained winds, wind gusts up past 200 miles an hour, the pressure down near 893 millibars. Folks, this one, like I said, just breaking every record it possibly can, and we'll continue to be talking about it in today's video. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte, and if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications so you're always up to date here with the latest and changing data and how that will be affecting your forecast, because we all know the weather's always changing, so good to stay weather aware. All right, let's just dive right on into things, folks. And you can see here on satellite, not hard to find where the major hurricane is spinning away. Just a textbook presentation from Melissa. The storm looks like it's out of the Pacific, but it's in the Atlantic. And like I said, just slamming the country of Jamaica currently. A very symmetric storm. When you see a storm that is almost a perfect circle, you know it means business. The cloud tops as high on the scale as you can get here with those pinkish colors right near the core. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, making a direct landfall. Also, we'll show you our visible high resolution, and I think we've got enough sunshine now that, yeah, you can see the sun coming up over the storm currently, and obviously painting the picture there with the eye having a very clear stadium effect right now. We've seen some of the videos coming out of this storm, and just very impressive stuff all around. All right, let's go ahead and dive into a couple other things, and I don't need that actually, but what I do need are these two tabs. So let me show you the latest data that we have from Recon. They've been flying around in the storm this morning, and actually they got stuck in the eye for a little while. It was a little scary there for a good 15 or 20 minutes or so. The plane was just doing circles in the eye of the hurricane, and it's already a pretty small eye, so I'm sure the plane was quite tilted there. The reason for that is that the storm is so intense that they had to kind of use the radar in the plane to figure out what is the safest way out here. Obviously, there's a ton of lightning in the eye wall right now. The winds are off the chart, so they did some circles for a while and continued to collect data while figuring out what the best exit path from the center of the storm was. Luckily, they were able to get out of it just fine, it would appear, but not before finding wind speeds up past 170 knots, folks, at flight level, and the pressure down here at the surface easily down only a couple millibars above 890. That would make this tied for, if not the strongest ever hurricane in the Atlantic Basin while making landfall. So folks in Jamaica, you really are living a once-in-a-lifetime, a once-in-a-generation type event here with the storm system. And I wanted to show you this as well. In fact, actually, what we're going to do is go back, because I think we have a new drops on. I'm going to get a little off track here, but you can all look at the wonderful Tropical Tidbits website here with me. Yeah, I want to say drops on number 6 or 8 probably is what it's going to be. Would be, yes, the Southern Eye Wall. I think this is the one. All right, let me walk you through this one, folks, because this literally just happened, so that's why I'm pulling it up on the fly. We've got a new drops on that came in. Basically, this is a weather instrument that the hurricane hunters dropped. They dropped this one into the eye wall of the storm itself to try to collect the data, what's happening in the worst part of the storm. Folks, they found winds at 172 knots at the surface. That's not above the ground. That is at the surface. Not far above the ground, winds above that, 219 knots at 906 millibars. Some of that, I'm sure in parts of the eye wall, are mixing down, maybe not quite to that speed, but I would not be surprised, folks, if we have a 200 mile an hour hurricane in reality right now working into the island of Jamaica. There's going to be devastating tree loss. The higher elevations, the southern facing slopes especially, we're going to have major structure loss. This is basically if a high-end category or high-end EF4, tornado were to be the size of, 20 miles or so just working through. It's basically what this is. It's just a massive tornado that's moving a lot slower, but this one being a hurricane. The damage, though, will be about the same. So obviously, we're finding a lot here from Recon. The data on this storm is very impressive, but let's go and talk about what it still has to do, and that's cross the island. And yeah, more folks on down the road still on the line of Hurricane Melissa. The track for Melissa is really unchanged from the past couple of days. The storm, unfortunately, right now making landfall into the western half of Jamaica, not far from Black River. In fact, Black River probably getting some of the worst of the surge and the wind, it looks like, with this one. But after that, it will cross the island. That will help to weaken the storm some. But then still expected to be a Category 4 hurricane upon landfall here into southeastern Cuba, where we once again will be getting devastating winds, heavy rainfall, and all of the other unfortunate things hurricanes bring, including storm surge. And then after that, the storm will cross through the southern Bahamas and near the Turks and Caicos Islands. And then from there, we need to watch Bermuda. Yeah, Bermuda, you're still near the center of the cone here. There's a lot of model guidance is still suggesting the storm could make a very close pass to the island. By then, weaker, though, as a Category 1 storm. And then after that, back off into the open Atlantic. It looks like it'll even miss Canada, is what the latest kind of data is suggesting. So that's the track of the storm. Let's go ahead and dive in now to the model data and show you what this is likely to look like in real time, including where the rain will be the heaviest and where the wind will be the strongest. This is the latest HAFS-A model, and I think it's done an incredible job with the storm so far, so we will continue to use it. Obviously, right now, the storm making landfall in Jamaica is around an 893 or so millibar hurricane. As mentioned before, that is a record breaker, or at least record tire at the very least. The storm going to cross the island and just bring insane amounts of wind and rain. Now, here's the good news for folks over towards Kingston. While onshore flow will be a problem, and you'll definitely see some storm surge, some heavy rain, and some windy conditions, the storm is quite small, actually, so that area where we're getting those Cat 5 winds are going to be very isolated, probably really only like a 10 or 20 mile stretch of land here, maybe more like 40, 50. But either way, it's going to only be a small section of the island here that gets that very strong core of the storm that will cross over. Areas out here into the eastern part of the island, this will feel more like a low-end hurricane, even though it is a Category 5, and that is thanks to the size of it, helping to keep the worst of the impacts in a very isolated area. But those of you that see the worst of it, it'll unfortunately really just be hell on earth for much of today as the storm works on through. The island luckily weakens the storm a little bit, but then getting back to the other side of Jamaica still is a major, likely Category 4 hurricane, pulling north from there and making a second landfall in Cuba. This is by overnight tonight and into tomorrow. Good news for Jamaica is after today, you're done with the storm. It's not going to linger any longer. I know it's been here for what feels like a week or two, but I really think as early as late tonight, things will begin to calm down, and you can go out and start the cleanup process there across the island. But by that point, the storm battering southeastern Cuba as a major hurricane, crossing Cuba. Then the Bahamas are up next. At this point, the storm even weaker, likely a Category 2, maybe give or take a little bit, but in that range here by Wednesday afternoon. The storm losing some of its structure. It looks like at this point, dry air is going to start to kind of infiltrate the backside. Also, the storm going to pick up speed. So all of that is good news. That'll lower the rainfall totals. It'll still be very windy, but the rainfall totals will be lowering from the improvement of the forward speed and the de-intensification of the structure of the storm. After that, the storm keeps moving and could lash Bermuda with heavy rain and some strong winds here by overnight Thursday. Hopefully, the core of the storm misses the island, but honestly, this is probably going to be a pretty normal tropical system for Bermuda, hardly your first, and something that you will be able to handle. It's really Jamaica, Cuba that I think is where we're going to see the strongest impacts from Melissa here over the next 24 to 48 hours. All right, let's go ahead and show you the wind map as well, and show you how the winds could evolve with this system. Then we'll show you the rainfall totals as well, and then hopefully be done with Melissa after that point. Here's the wind forecast, and like I said, the good news, if there is any good news out of the system, is the size of it is keeping that very strong corridor of winds to a very compact region. So you can see where these brightest kind of pinkish colors are right into here. That's where the worst of the winds will be. That's where we get the Category 4 and Category 5 wind speeds. Over towards Kingston and other areas, more of low-wind hurricane, even tropical storm winds is what you're likely to expect out of this system. Keep it going. Obviously, the island rips it apart a little bit and the storm weakening. I think by the time it hits Cuba, the storm is going to really start to expand in size as it starts to interact with an upper level trough that often helps to expand storms, which will help weaken the max winds. But by that point, more people will feel the winds. So I think really much of southeastern Cuba is going to have a very windy day here, or windy evening, I should say, overnight tonight and then into tomorrow for your Wednesday. As you can see, like I said, that wind field expanding and kind of continuing that trend here as you go ahead into the Bahamas, you can also see the storm getting bigger in size, and it's going to be a very windy day there. Easily, we're going to see hurricane force winds out of this one into the southern Bahamas, into the Turks and Caicos, at least getting tropical storm force there. And then after that, obviously the storm getting into the open Atlantic and Bermuda. Right now, most models suggest that you could see hurricane force winds, at the very least hurricane force wind gusts, as again at this point the storm is really becoming more of a mid-latitude cyclone, expanding in size, trying to gain some fronts, and that wind field, as I mentioned, expanding. So I think at the very least Bermuda going to see tropical storm force conditions out of the storm early Friday morning. What about rainfall? Well, I think the worst of the rain has fallen for a lot of folks here outside of Jamaica into Hispaniola, but for Jamaica itself, right now probably is the worst of it. You can see we're still expecting a good 20 plus inches of rain, especially into the higher elevations of the western half of the country where the core of the storm is moving in right now. For southeastern Cuba, I mean, it's going to be no picnic either. Obviously, you're going to get less rain than Jamaica, but still localized spots, especially southern facing areas that are higher up in elevation, could get 20 plus inches of rainfall for most folks, though, a foot to a foot and a half into that region. And then by the time it gets to the Bahamas, really picking up speed, and the storm, because of that, dropping less rain, more 8 to 12 inches in a worst case scenario once the storm passes on by the Bahamas. And then Bermuda, this probably won't be much of a flooding event for you, maybe coastal flooding, but not freshwater flooding. All right, well, folks, that's Melissa. That's all I've got for it on today's video. Obviously, it's happening now, so there's a lot less to dive into. We don't have to dive into the model data so much, per se, as we already kind of know what the storm is doing. It's more of a nowcasting than anything else. All right, well, with that said, though, let's talk about the eastern U.S. We've got a busy week ahead. We got Halloween on the way, and I do see an active pattern with stormy weather here coming up over the next 5 days. I'm going to quickly show satellite over the United States. I'll loop it once and you'll see why I don't have it looping. And we've got this weird little lack of data in the north, and I don't want to give anyone epilepsy, so we'll only loop it the once, although I say that now. And is it going to do it again? Okay, never mind. I guess it fixed itself. So you know what? You ask and you shall receive. We'll loop the satellite today. So we've got a bit of a storm system off the southeast coastline. This one actually phased from a mid-level system we had yesterday over the Tennessee and Ohio Valley, phased offshore in almost a Miller B way as expected. But this is still producing some rain out there. The bigger story, though, is we've got a new trough. Might be a little hard to see, but you see this little spin right here? A new low pressure beginning to develop right now over Kansas, Oklahoma, and that is going to form into a pretty good storm system by the middle of this week and ride up the Appalachian chain and bring some very gusty conditions and very rainy conditions, and then some much cooler air behind it just in time for Halloween right now is how it appears. Now, as we go into radar imagery, like I said, that coastal storm still bringing some pretty good rain to the Charlotte area, Raleigh, up into Greensboro and into southeastern Virginia today, but starting to clear out in areas down towards Columbia, Charleston, and into Georgia. But you can see that next round on the way. We've got this next storm system. We've got rainfall really beginning to develop out in front of it here towards Arkansas. It looks like warm air advection beginning to take a hold, maybe a warm front developing and getting some lift along it, helping for some rainfall to begin. We've also got some light showers all the way up to the north, up into Iowa, Kansas, eastern Nebraska, and into much of Minnesota today, seeing some rain, but that will eventually unfold into a much more widespread rain picture here over the next 24 hours, but to the east, and will start to dry out behind it. Here's what it looks like in the upper levels and why this is going to be a pretty good storm system. Well, we've got this big piece of energy associated with it, a lot of vorticity, a lot of spin with this trough right now over the central U.S. and continuing to work eastbound. And eventually, if not already, becoming quite negatively tilted and then just breaking apart from the flow. And you can see these very bright blue colors. This is a lot of cyclonic vorticity, and that's going to get advected into a region of high diffluence aloft and right over, plenty of baroclinic instability already set up. So expect this one to ride up the Appalachian chain as it begins to kind of follow its upper level system. The lower level system will. And like I said, I think the wind going to be one of the higher end threats with this system. Maybe not even so much the rainfall, but it will rain. So let's take a look at the model data and show you the timing of this, how much rain we can expect, and then, like I said, some of those gusty conditions as well. Here's what the map looks like at the initialization of the model, doing a pretty good job showing that big coastal storm right off the southeast coast, and then our developing low pressure over Oklahoma, as I mentioned earlier. Now, if we kind of move this ahead into time, notice the storm disappears for a second, but then rejuvenates itself, if you will, and becomes a pretty good little storm system here by tomorrow morning. This is Wednesday morning, right around 1,000 millibars, producing a pretty good range, dragging cool and colder air behind it, and then working eastbound. And it's going to be a pretty breezy Wednesday into the Appalachia chain. We're going to get some pretty strong winds out there, some heavy rainfall into the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina, up through the mid-Atlantic. The storm system working through, again, bringing some heavier rainfall, some gusty winds, and then into the northeast. This is Thursday morning. And I want to note something here. This is Melissa at that point. Notice the connection. The storm system pulling up some of Melissa's moisture with it. So a real atmospheric river unfolding here from the south to the north. So this is going to be some pretty heavy rainfall, very heavy rainfall, I'd even say, rate-wise Thursday morning. So don't let that catch you off guard here into the northeast. The good news, the storm is moving quick, so we could see some flooding, but I think thanks to the forward progress of this one, this won't be a major flooding event for the northeast, but do not be surprised if some folks get some flash flood warnings out of this, even though it has been so dry. I think it's just going to come down really hard and heavy in a very quick amount of time. This is by the evening of Thursday. You can see rocking and rolling up towards Boston, up towards New Hampshire, Vermont, and into Maine. And then by Friday morning, we're waking up and folks, starting to really dry out just in time for Halloween. This is your trick-or-treat forecast. This is 8 p.m. on Friday night, so Halloween night. And for most of us, dry outside, maybe a couple stray showers left over on the backside of the system up into New England and into the Midwest. But all things considered, a very nice and festive Halloween forecast so far, as it will also be quite cool. You can see that 540 line here in blue indicating cooler air working on in behind this system. All right, that's what it's going to look like. Let's show you the wind and the rainfall totals out of this, and then show you when maybe we could finally expect the first snow of the season for some of the higher elevations in the eastern U.S. It's already been a pretty breezy one today in Charlotte. I can tell you firsthand, it was quite windy this morning stepping out the door, but we're going to start to get a little bit of a lull over the next day or so. And I think by tomorrow, it starts pretty quiet here for most of us in the mid-Atlantic, but notice some of those higher winds back out west. And by the time we get later on into the day, I know it doesn't look like a lot, and I don't think it will be outside of the higher terrains, but it could get breezy even into the Piedmont. Check out the winds, though, into West Virginia tomorrow, into the higher peaks. We're talking 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts. Would not surprise me at all as this storm rides right up the Appalachia chain. So just be mindful of that. It could be quite windy into really all of the apps from North Georgia up through West Virginia. And then the storm really picks up some wind as it gets on into the northeast. And you can even see Thursday afternoon, a bit of a breezy day here into the Carolinas, winds gusting up near 30 miles an hour for a lot of us. And then eventually the winds calming down here by Halloween afternoon into the lower elevations, but staying feisty into the northwest flow regions where a strong advection of cold air will begin to work on in and really keep things quite breezy. But in terms of rainfall into this part of the country, a good another inch to maybe 2 inches for a lot of us here from Virginia, Maryland, southbound into the Carolinas, especially 85 north. If you're south of there, this next system might not get you as good in areas south of I-20. You're probably going to be a bit more dry than other places. What about the northeast? Well, here, like I said, it could also be quite breezy. Check out the wind increase. This is Thursday morning and afternoon. Winds just offshore gusting up near 60 miles an hour right off of Long Island into much of New Jersey, gusting up near tropical storm strength. Won't be sustained like that, but we will see some gust up into that range. Same thing up towards Scranton and then down towards Philly, Trenton, up the Hudson Valley, and very breezy into the higher terrains of Vermont, New Hampshire, Western Mass here by overnight on Thursday and into your early Friday. And then Friday afternoon, stays breezy for everyone as that stronger flow works in. So a bit of a spooky day, Halloween on Friday. Strong gusty winds throughout the day as well, especially into the higher terrains on that northwest flow. But then trying to calm down a little bit here by the time we get into this weekend and into early next week. Sorry, I had something in my eye there. All right, what's next? Let's talk about temperatures, and then I'll show you the chance that some of us could maybe get our first high elevation snow of the season, or if you want to take a drive to see it, where you might have to go. Like I said, cold air going to be moving in behind this second system. For many of us, it's already cold as we have cold air damming in place. You can see today quite chilly into the Carolinas, whether the next storm's gotten here or not, to bring another shot of actual cold air. This is still cold air trapped over from yesterday's cold air damming. And even though it's not as rainy today for some of us, still quite chilly. You can see, though, behind that system, this is by this weekend. So just in time for the start of November and time to set the clocks back. Don't forget, you fall back here on Saturday. You can see that we've got a lot of blue showing up, indicating below average temperatures, and it looks to hold on for at least some time here into the east, and then maybe a warm up here by around the 10th or so of November. But before we get there, I do think some of us in the higher elevations of the Northeast especially will have the chance for some northwest flow snow. Now, with the current system that's moving through, the one that I just showed you on satellite and all, that one's not really going to do it. But right around here, later this weekend, Saturday into Sunday, some of the higher terrains of maybe Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, would not be shocked to see some flakes fly. And then other than that, there's been another signal right around here. This is right around the 5th or so of November for some maybe northwest flow event from West Virginia northbound. So still not quite there for the lower elevations. It's only the end of October, November, so plenty of time to go, but just starting to tease the idea of that winter weather forecasting here on the channel as we start to, after Melissa, gear up for that and hopefully leave the tropics behind us, although sometimes November can do some crazy things, but I think we'll hopefully is the word, be done after Melissa. All right, folks, that's all I've got for you. I mean, just an insane, historic day here in the weather world, and I'll leave you with one more look at Melissa here as we continue to track the storm. And again, just breaking all sorts of records. Latest data that just came in, I got 185 mile an hour storm. 892 millibars is the pressure, the strongest ever Atlantic hurricane recorded, and the strongest to make landfall in terms of wind and pressure, but the strongest wind-wise, I believe, out there. And some of the data, I would not be surprised after they revise it that they really cement that in, but just my thoughts. All right, well, y'all have a good one. Obviously, keeping folks in Jamaica in our thoughts and prayers, and folks in Cuba and the Bahamas and everyone else that's still in line for this one. But let's start thinking about happier weather, happier times, and hopefully we can do that tomorrow once the storm is passed on by Jamaica. Y'all have a great one. I'll see you then.